Just as Napster and its competitors blew up the legacy music recording business, YouTube, Netflix, and many other entities raided the cable TV business, the theatrical feature film business, and changing the entertainment business ecosystem forever. The food chain that provided for thousands of people around the world for decades has been turned upside down. I'm Lance Lafort. Welcome back to Talent Thrives Here, our podcast where we engage with leaders in several industries and the challenges they face today. My special guest is none other than Gregg Goldin, a senior entertainment executive and producer with more than 20 years experience working at giants like MTV, Cartoon Network, and DreamWorks Animation, among others. Gregg worked on blockbuster franchises like How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, and many more. Gregg, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
It is a Good Friday, so I thank you for joining us on this holiday weekend, and I'm just really happy to have on the show. Gregg, it's no surprise to anyone in the entertainment business what upheaval has occurred recently. But for anyone new to the events impacting your business and mine, can you pin maybe a top 5 factors affecting the market right now?
I feel like there's so many. I had to
Yeah,
narrow it down to 5, but yeah, I think the biggest thing overall for entertainment is just there's so many choices and not enough time, right?
yeah,
We have movies and series and Netflix and YouTube and TikToks and games and podcasts, and it's just there's so much great content out there,
yeah,
and it's really kind of spread the audience. So that's had a big factor to it. I think related to that is sort of, I think entertainment has sort of become a little more temporary than it was. I mean,
right.
it used to be that you could watch a movie and then it would show up on home video, then it would show up on cable, and you would kind of come back in your life again and again. And now you sort of binge watch a movie or a series, and it's just gone and replaced by the next. And so there's sort of this
Yeah,
temporary, it doesn't quite have that feel. So I think the two of them, that together are having an impact.
yep,
Obviously, all the volatility we've had recently between mergers and strikes and sort of the upheaval just of the business at large is having an impact both with, what's in the theaters, what's kind of coming to your TVs for streaming. Um, also everything is very expensive. Movie
yeah,
tickets are $20. I know at my theater to go to IMAX movie, it's $30
right,
for one
right.
ticket. Streaming services are raising prices.
Yeah,
We all back in the day were complaining about, one big cable bill, and now between all the
right.
services you have to buy, it's a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
in my business, and then finally sort of the kids business and animation, it's really taken a big hit. I think it's really a lot of streaming versus YouTube,
right.
and how to the binge model, and does that work for kids in the way they watch TV? And then it's
Yeah,
YouTube, being able, not being able, it's where the audience is, where eyeballs are,
yeah,
but for creators not being able to monetize in the kid space for YouTube as easily as a Mr. Beast, for example, who isn't as a kids brand and can monetize like any other channel, but because of all the regulations on kids, which I agree with and I
yeah,
understand, but it's harder to earn that way. So all this big bouillabaisse of everything going on, it's
yeah.
it's a lot of upheaval right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I saw the other day, I can't remember the name. There's a TikToker that bought by a Chinese investment firm for close to $1 billion. And they want to license his face and his brand for several years. He's not allowed to produce any more content. They own him, but they're going to do a digital clone of his head and then just create content. Yeah. Anyways,
It
it's
just,
just such
yeah,
a strange time to live in, right? Like
I know.
if you had said 30 years ago this was going to happen, people would be thinking, well, get out of here, right? It's impossible. That's nuts,
Yeah.
right? But it's the tech has
You,
come an awful long
and kind
way.
of kind of Netflix doing it. Netflix has finally sort of figured out that they can, yeah, they can just buy properties, buy content, and get talent off of YouTube.
Yeah.
GoDaddy is the next biggest kids property that's migrated over with Mark Rober, with Miss Rachel. So they're sort of figuring out that letting YouTube find the audiences and build them, and then they'll take the brands over that way as well.
Yeah, it again, I keep talking about the ecosystem as like upside down. Things keep happening quicker than they normally would. As you know, 20 years ago, change would happen, but it would happen over an 8 to 10 year span. And
Right.
now it seems to be happening really quickly. Much quicker than I think people can really sort of factor in sometimes. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's incredible how rapidly things are changing. And so I guess my curiosity too is, people like yourself, myself, I've been around the business for a long time, a couple decades, I've worked around children's animation and visual effects and video gaming. I just call it the digital umbrella. Everything that's got a pixel somehow affected you and me and a lot of people we know. Um, and so I'm wondering, for someone like yourself that's worked in big studios, what's the pivot, I guess? What are things looking like right now for, because there's lots of I think layoffs in places, and again mergers and acquisitions happening, and the business. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perception, from my purview, kind of exploded during COVID, and there was a halo for a couple of years after where there was more production than eyeballs watching it, and I'm mostly streaming, if I could be frank, and the counter sort of to that was that younger kids progressively more and more were going away from linear programming and going more into possibly having two or three devices on at the same time and just scrolling
yeah.
and getting potentially, a dopamine hit off of watching some other kid play a video game online. Like that just freaks me out that the kids aren't actually playing the game, they're watching someone else play the game. Or unboxing videos where they're watching some other kid unbox something. Like, what the heck? Like, so I don't
Yeah.
know, Greg, where does it,
Well,
if there's
I,
possibilities, what's the pivot look like?
I mean, I can understand why kids like watching other kids play video games because back in the day in the 80s when I was at an arcade and had no money, all I could do was stand next to the cabinet and watch someone else play. So I can
Yeah,
kind of understand that. And but yeah, it's I think what it is that yeah, obviously we were all trapped at home during the pandemic with nothing to do
yeah,
but to watch stuff. And so it was an explosion. I was working in I'm still in animation. Being in animation was one of the few things that we could just really like pick up, the next day and say, oh,
yeah,
we're working from home now
yeah,
and didn't miss a beat. So it was really thankful for that. But obviously, there was a greater need for those years of more and more and more, and now we have to right size.
yeah,
So I think that overall, we as industry have to pretend they have to stop pretending that like change hasn't happened. This is the conversation I'm having a lot
yeah,
with people is that I think for the past couple of years, as these changes are sort of rocking the industry, there's been this collective denial, like, no, things will go back to the way they were, and
right,
things are not going to ever go back to where they were. And I
yeah,
think we have to embrace it. You mentioned Napster at the top of the show, and I think that's a really great cautionary tale where the music industry just ignored it and didn't want to do it and fought it and sued it.
yeah,
And audiences were like, but this is how we want to consume our music. And a couple years later, Spotify comes out and we're in a
yeah,
whole new world. But the music industry was never quite the same. And so
yeah,
I think overall for TVs and movies, we're in a similar sort of position. Although I've been noticing over the past couple years that, or not, sorry, past couple years, past couple months, recently that I think people are starting to sort of come into that realization that we have to figure out what this new shift is
yeah,
going to be.
yeah.
Well, obviously we don't have the answers yet, but we know we have to start looking at things in a new way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It reminded me of a couple things. I remember listening to an interview with Lyle Lovett, the singer performer,
Yeah.
and he said he was forced to start touring again because he said we made money off our tours, but the back end on the music business was collapsing so much that he said that all that revenue kind of dried up. And so I wonder about animation. Do we have to go on the road? Do we have to build animation road? I don't know, but
Well, I think things are happening. I think a lot of like live events and pop-ups and
yeah,
obviously theme parks and sort of themed entertainment. But you have to. There's obviously brands that exist that you can exploit and go to those places, but you also have to be able to create new brands.
yeah,
New shows, new characters that people love for them to be able to see it. I think the newest example is, Bluey just showed up at Disneyland in,
right,
in a big show. And so that's a great, great new obviously that character's been around for a couple years, but a great
yeah,
having a live show now is bringing people in. I think that's going to be a big part of where entertainment continues to go. You're looking at the Netflix houses they're springing up sort of around and being able to have those great pop-up experiences and being
yeah,
able to like live in one piece or experience Stranger Things in a different way. But it all
yeah.
comes back to the screen because it has to start on your screens. You build affinity for those characters, and then you want to go see them live.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Just before we started the podcast recording, I wanted to plug Hail Mary
Oh yeah.
as a. I thought I just saw it, on the weekend, and it felt like what a traditional cinematic experience in the theater should be like. A big
Yeah.
screen, big effects, and also sometimes just really silent moments. And so not that this ties into our talk exactly, Greg, but it was like one of those, oh, this is what a theater should be like, and this is what a
Yeah.
theatrical release should
Yeah.
be like, and it was awesome, right? It was like almost 3 hours. I think it was 2 hours and 40 minutes or something, but never once did I want to get up and leave the theater at any point. I'm
Yeah.
like, it was a great story. So,
I
back
love.
back to what you're saying there too. I think if animation can go on the road, or if we can take brands on the road to draw in audiences to further connect them with the IP, with the product,
Right.
with that
Yeah.
whole environment. I think that's, if Taylor Swift is that successful, maybe that's the clue, right? We have to figure out a way to build these animation roads. I've just thrown that out
Yeah,
off the top of my
yeah,
head.
and I think too. I think it used to be you go to one stop and get your show here, and I think what we've all really learned is that audiences want it. They want it to be on YouTube and on Netflix and at Roblox and all
Yeah,
and live, at a theme park or in a mall or
yeah,
whatever malls are left.
yes,
Having those experiences and being able to sort of like embrace it in different ways. And so thinking
yeah,
about a property or thinking about a show or anything in as a franchise in the different mediums, and different worlds is becoming really important. And I think also
yeah,
being able to give audiences sort of a different experience in each one of those buckets is also really important as well.
yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah, you mentioned earlier too, you're having this conversation with a lot of people, as I am as well, and I bumped into a lot of people sort of saying, what do we do? And I think a lot of it comes down to, as financing. It's like we need a several groups of people willing to, put money in towards let's try this or let's experiment with that, and whether that money is local or offshore, I at this point I'm agnostic as to where it's coming from, but I would love to see because I remember years ago when I was in Toronto working, the bond companies are very hesitant to invest in certain feature films, and then a local studio actually had one that like I think it broke even in the first couple weeks in the box
Mm.
office, and the bond companies went, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we'll take a risk now because that they needed like the precedents, they needed the templates to
Yeah.
go. Here's the story. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I think that's part of this pivot moving forward is finding investors that would come along with a pitch. And not to
Yeah.
say that isn't happening. I'm sure there's lots of people pitching right now, but I believe possibly that's an avenue that some people maybe hadn't explored before because they didn't have to. Someone else brought the project in and it rolled forward, and a lot of us were working in large studios. And so, I guess the analogy in my mind is whether someone was hunting the food or farming it, right? Most of us had
Right.
learned for 20 years to farm. Someone else brought the meat in and we cut it up and dressed it and built it. Anyways, I'm curious if I could pivot to what you're doing right now because you have started a new venture. Correct me if I'm wrong, and
Yep.
tell myself and our audience a little bit about what you're doing and what that looks
Sure.
like.
Absolutely. So my new venture is a creative consultancy called First Audience Creative, and it's sprung out of what I love to do best, which is working with writers, which is working creators, looking at IP, really the storytelling part. I'm a creative executive through and through, and it's been my favorite part. So going independent and being able to both work with writers and creators, and studios and IP holders as well. And my focus is really thinking about the core of a story, the soul of a story, and also thinking about who you're making it for, especially in the
Right.
kids world. A lot of times, it's very important to be like, well, this is a great, fun cartoon that could work for adults, but really our core audience is 10 years old, so we have to make
Right.
sure that no matter what we do, we're thinking about them first. And I do think
Yeah.
that a lot of times in the industry, sometimes the audience is sort of the last thing that gets thought about. So
Right.
when I come in and I work with creatives on something, I always say that I'm your first audience. I'm coming in with no other agenda other than like I want the thing to work. I want the what we're making to be the best, and I'm going to come at it from the perspective of the audience. So sometimes it means working with artists who are very focused on the little detail that's in the background that isn't quite right. I always hate to say like, it's okay because if we're not focused on the characters in the foreground having a conversation and the audience is looking at the thing in the back, we're not doing our job as storytellers. So I bring
Yeah.
that sort of energy and enthusiasm into the creative consultancy. Then also another part of it is doing what I was talking about in terms of the IP and franchise management and thinking about how something could work as a theme park attraction, as a video
Mm,
game, as a movie, and as a TV show, and making
right.
sure all those things work together. And this really comes out of what I was able to do a lot of DreamWorks animation, but other places as well. But working on How to Train Your Dragon, for example, I worked on How to Train Your Dragon for 12 years on a
Wow.
series side.
Yeah.
Making TV extension spin-offs of the franchise, but also working with the team to be able to make sure the whole story works together and feels cohesive. And so, it's finding the core and soul of a project that's gonna build those connective bridges to the audience.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Great. Well, just conscious of the time. I think we've gone 15 minutes. Most of my audience probably has ADHD or they're tucking into some Easter egg hunt. I'm not sure. But I'd love to chat more. Maybe we could do a chapter two at some point and check in on your
That'd be great.
consultancy a little later down the road, see how things are evolving. But I really thank you, Greg, for being on the show today. And I wish you and your new venture all the best.
Thank you so much.
And if someone wants to connect with you, is LinkedIn the best way, or is there a website up yet? Or
LinkedIn is a great way, and then my website is at www.firstaudience.co.
see, oh, perfect. Okay, great. Well, thanks again. Thanks everybody for listening to Talent Thrives Here. Drop a comment, a like, a subscribe. YouTube or Spotify, we're on both, and we usually post on LinkedIn to get a big audience there as well. Thank you again, Greg, and have a great weekend.
Thanks so much. You too. Great speaking with you.